My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
I am Iron Man.
What is going on, y'all? It is Eric Italiano, co-host of the Post Credit Podcast. Now, this is twice in a week where we are throwing y'all a curveball because, once again, it is my voice opening the show, and that is because today we have another special interview-only episode. We are speaking with the star of Harder They Fall, Jonathan Majors, who you also may know from a few things like Loki and soon to be Ant-Man 3, and also the director of said film, James Samuel. I've seen it. It's fantastic. I hope y'all check it out when it hits Netflix on November 3rd. And otherwise, we will talk to y'all this Friday when we are recapping and reviewing Eternals and speaking to Gilgamesh actor Don Lee. All right, y'all. Oh, and if you haven't yet, rate, review, subscribe, do all that shit. All right, talk Friday. Peace. How are you today, brother? Well?
Strong, man. Yeah, feeling good.
So congrats on the film. I had an absolute blast with it. I had a blast with your character specifically. For you, Jonathan, what do Westerns mean to you? Did you grow up watching them? Is there one in particular that you love? Or is this simply you trying to diversify the type of roles that you take on, which I think has been a real strength of your career so far?
I love movies. And I feel that some of the most profound movies for me were Westerns. You know, some of the most entertaining films growing up were Westerns. For instance, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. You know, love that film. And also, what else would I say? I'm sorry, just a second. Whoa! Whoa! Just a second.
My brother, man. You beat me too. I was telling you.
Can you see it? James Savage just walked in.
Hey, James, I'm going to be talking to you in about an hour, so.
Oh, bro, I didn't want to disturb. I couldn't resist, man.
No, you're good, man. It's good to see you both.
Yeah, I'm next door. Tata's room.
You know you started some shit like that. Because I've done it. I was not good.
Okay. Vomit.
You just got. I should have told you. All right. Sorry, my brother.
No, you're good, man. You were on Butch Cassidy.
Yeah, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Love that film. One of my favorite films. The Lonesome Dove series is also something I really enjoyed. And Gunsmoke, just the opening of Gunsmoke, bang 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 bang. That was always that's kind of in my head from my grandfather, and my mother. Her favorite picture growing up was Little House on the Prairie. So we used to watch those dramas in the house all the time. So they kind of seeked themselves into my conscience for what it was that storytelling was. Yeah.
That actually leads me into my next point, because given that Westerns are such an iconic staple of film, I'm curious what the process of adding your own layers and quirks to an archetype that has such a rich and established history, and how did you do that for your role?
I mean, you nailed it there, because you think Western, and what do you think, right? Well, we just said Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, right? So you got those two cats, Paul Newman and Robert Redford, you know, playing those iconic duo, right? And then you have, of course, you know, Clint Eastwood, yeah, and John Wayne. And those four gentlemen, as handsome and dangerous as they are, all have one thing in common that I do not have in common with them, you know. And so, I mean, the elephant in the room is that, okay, here's a black Western hero, right, which we've not seen before. So at the same time, like with any art, you know, there's a standard, right? And so you first must understand the standard. And so one of the things I understand about, I feel, for my process is, what do these, let's just take these four individuals, for instance. What do these four characters have in common, right? And that is, there's a certain amount of presence with them. There's a certain amount of accoutrement with them, right? The hat horse, all these things. And the thing that makes those four men, those four characters distinct, or the fact, or is in the observation of how they use those things, right? In the stories they tell. So in that, my biggest thing was, okay, one of the things was, okay, we got my horse, we got the hat, we got the poncho, we got the guns. What makes them different, right? Well, one, truth be told, I'm a lot younger than those guys, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that.
But I still
right?
think you have a real weight to your character. Still carries a very world weary weight to him.
No, I agree with that. But there's also something that happens with being a younger man, right? That your aggression is a little different, isn't it? Right? Your risk taking is a little different. You're willing, and there's a certain confidence, right? Because Nat has made his way from slavery, right? The autobiographic info is that Nat Love was born a slave, right, in Tennessee, and then journeyed all the way to the West, in the elements of our story, right? What type of individual is that, right? And so one of the big things I was focused on is that the level of stakes, right, and the level of risks that Nat was willing to take. And on a scale from 1 to 10, he was pretty much at a 10, right? He was willing to do anything, right, to exact revenge on what it is that was done to him, because what was done to him was so violating.
Monstrous. Where does badass, anti-hero, romantic, slick gunslinger rank in terms of the types of parts that an actor can take on? And do you pursue specific types of roles like this, or do you just sort of react to what comes your way? And if so, what's left on that sort of types of roles that you hope to take on?
You said what's next on that? On that?
Well, if you're consciously planning what type of roles that you want to take on, do you have like a roadmap or?
No, well, I will say this, that it's quite flattering that you say all those things about Nat. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, I thought you were so cool. I just thought you were so slick, man. Just such a dope character. Like, I imagine being a gunslinger that is also romantic and cool as hell is probably as good as it gets for acting,
Yeah, it's cool, man, because really it's like, it's the constant gardener, theory, where it's like you just keep working on these small things, and as the film, because you don't know he's going to have that romantic side to him at the beginning in the church, right? You don't know that. You also don't even know that he can ride a horse like he can ride it, right? So it's morsels, right? It's like, okay, this is who he is at this moment. This is who he is at this moment. And then when it's all said and done, 2 hours and 10 minutes later, you go, how? How does this man, how does this happen? And I ask the same question, like I go, how? Because to me, my only objective that's kind of outside of a script is to look at everybody individually. And I believe that you have to find what's peculiar about someone, right? And highlight that.
Their quirks.
And if he's confident in that, in the quirks or in the peculiarity of himself, it is just natural, right? It's just natural, right? The peacock doesn't feel more whatever because he can do the tail thing. You know what I mean? It's just what a peacock does. It's us that goes, dog, that is such a cool bird, right? He's just doing him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that love is just doing that love. You know?
Plus, with that name, you can't help but be cool as hell.
You know what I mean?
Let me ask you, how do you get in the zone for emotional scenes, which are some of my favorite parts of the films, like the one with Zazie or with Idris? And how does that compare for getting into the scene like you did for Loki? Is it the same process? Because they're different emotional beats, but they're sort of the big climax. So how do you get yourself in the zone for varying types of payoff moments?
There is no zone.
You are the zone.
I do. One of the things that's imperative for me is, it's funny, James came in here because James says, like, I never showed up to New Mexico. Nat Love showed up to New Mexico, where we shot the film. And there's a certain, process that comes, and just for myself, right, I just want to do a good job, and one of the best things for me is I know myself, to a degree. I'm still learning, but I know myself, and I know that it's best for me not to act. You know, it's best for
And
me
just
not.
be.
Yeah, will try my best to do that. And what I do is just kind of, you just take it on. You know, it's uncomfortable at first. You just take it on. You know, I'm just gonna wear cowboy boots. You know, for the next 8 months. I'm gonna smoke for the next 8 months. You surrender to it.
Yeah.
You know, um, and I'm gonna think, and I'm gonna let that hurt, examine that hurt of what it would be like for my parents to leave and be taken from me.
Mm.
I'm just gonna sit with that, you know, and continue to sit with that. And you do your work and you look at the, you know, psychoanalysis of all of it, but you just try to really believe it. And the thing is, you'll believe it if there's nothing else in the way that tells you otherwise, right? So you just kind of begin to push things, subtraction. You begin to push things out of the way that distract from that, right? That distract from, you know, the aforementioned "He Who Remains," right? And then it's all about Idris Elba. It's all about Rufus Buck. If I know the thing that hurt me that much, his name is Rufus Buck, and he looks like, you know, one of the most sexiest men alive. You know, Idris Elba, right? You know what I mean? Like a legend.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Even
It
back
looks like
then in the Wild Wild West, I'm like,
you know what I
damn.
mean? When you see that person, you will feel those things.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you just try your best to get out of the way. And you're lucky enough to have, you know, a director and a Mihai, you know, our
So I
director
think
of
from
photography.
what I'm hearing from you is the zone is not a place to reach, it's a state of being.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's an approach.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
that. Like many movies these days, this film teases a sequel. Given the star power of this movie, the second one would have to come just as correct. Are there any ideas of who you would hope to work with in The Harder They Fall Part 2?
Well, I would say the first person we would have to work with, you know, real look, it's like this. I mean, the relationship that was established. I mean, as you saw, James just came in. You know,
Mm.
between the team that built this thing, you know, that being James Samuel, James Lasseter, uh, Tindo Ngenda at Netflix, you know, that family, Sean Carter, um, and because of the nature of Nat in the film, you know, myself, you know, as the protagonist of this particular world, um, we would just have to get busy again, you know, and figure out what other information, what other thing we can explore. But it would have to come correct. And
Mm.
if anybody could do it, I think it would be, you know, that core.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of films these days, as I said, tease sequels, but this one felt natural and right, which is a hard thing to do. I've only got
And
a.
it's dope because it's
Sorry, go ahead, man.
and it's dope because it's original content. That's the part.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
Now, I've only got a few minutes left, so I just want to swing over to your newly burgeoning Marvel career. Now, every time I talk to somebody who works in Marvel, I always feel sort of bad because I can only imagine the amount of questions that they get. But
Yeah.
that said, it is part of my job. So I do want to ask you, what are you hoping that Kang brings to the MCU that hasn't been done before? And what about that character is appealing to you as an actor?
Well, what's appealing to me about the character is that I get to work. You know, I get to um, I get to work. You know, which means I get to explore. I get to explore my own humanity and kind of put that on display for, you know, because it's Marvel, a massive audience, right? And that's really cool for me. You know, that's kind of what when I was sitting in North Carolina or New Haven, you know, in drama school, it's like what you always wanted, you know, in a way. And what I feel Kang brings to um, the MCU is, you know, something for our heroes to go up against, you know, um, and that's cool because you learn more about it. There's conflict, you know, and I get to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I apologize. I mean,
No, no, no. By all means, man. I've got to
yeah,
fish a bit. I got to try. Let me
yeah.
ask you one final one related to Marvel that's not quite as deep. Did you feel your brain explode when they were explaining all the multiverse stuff to you? And do you remember the exact moment that you got the call that you had been cast as a major MCU villain? And what was that like for you?
That was beautiful, and I can speak to that. I was in New Mexico. We were shooting Harder They Fall, and I was in New Mexico, um, I think actually smoking a cigarette or something. I think.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, and my team called, and I was with a very dear friend of mine, and we were just kind of sitting, and I just had to walk off. I was like, "What? They want to do what?" And the thing about it is, like, initially it's just a job, right? I was like, okay, cool. And then as it began to unfold, it became, you know, it became what it was, like, and who knows what it would be.
Yeah, I hear you. I think I speak for all fans, not only in terms of Kang, but in terms of your career as a whole. I've been having a thrill watching you work. Your early filmography is incredible. I think you're an immense talent, sir. Congratulations on the film. It is awesome. You are awesome in it. The Harder They Fall hits Netflix on November 3rd. Jonathan Majors, thank you so much, sir.
Oh, peace, my brother. That's so sweet. Thank you, man.
Take care,
Hell
boss.
yeah. Hell
See you
yeah.
soon,
Peace
I
out.
hope.